Welcome to part 8 of my full commentary on Westwood's 1997 game Blade Runner. This is Jack Everett, and continuing where we left off, I actually want to point out something that was mentioned to me in the comments, and I want to thank multiprocessing for this. But if we go back to Taffy Lewis's where we retired Gordo, if you look right here, there's actually another piece of evidence, and it is this lighter. So we can go into our evidence and we'll see that we have Gordo's lighter here, and McCoy will have something to say about it.
Lightning Squad, Rep Unit, Battle of the Gemini.
And that is the same dialogue from if you find Zubin's photo in Act 1, and so I guess Zubin gave Gordo this lighter. But it hardly matters because Gordo is already dead out on the street out there. But I also want to point out something interesting about the early Q situation, because I realized I made a few mistakes in this playthrough by retiring Bob. Yeah, since not retired, since I murdered Bullet Bob, it actually it'll cut this act. It's going to cut this act shorter than it normally would be, because you never get to fully resolve the situation with the third replicant in this act if you retire Bob. But the reason I retired Bob was because I wanted to illustrate something.
Your floor number, please.
And so actually, what I want to do for you guys is I played through the entire game again just so that I could get into the same spot without killing Bob. And so I have a bunch of save games here. And here's a save game before the early Q interaction without killing Bob. But there is something I want to tell you about this save game. So you may remember that Dektora bought those scorpions, and early Q was killed by the scorpions when we went into this room back here. Now, I had originally thought that if Dektora is a replicant, she buys the scorpions and kills early Q, and if she's a human, she doesn't buy the scorpions. But then in this playthrough, I found out she was human and had bought the scorpions, so I thought it was vice versa. But when I went back, I loaded the save game. You'll notice the game makes auto-saves at the start of every act. Like, here's the auto-save at the start of Act 2, for instance. I went and loaded that autosave at the start of Act 2, but I did everything a lot faster, and Dektora never bought the scorpions. So we're actually going to see a different scene here when I go in here to resolve the early Q situation. So there was no scorpion walking here, and I'll demonstrate this. Like, we can click on this chair, and McCoy will sit down and he'll be fine. If there had been scorpions and you sit down in that chair, McCoy will die and the game will be over. But we'll look at these monitors again, but we're going to skip the dialogue.
I lucked out.
We'll get the jewelry receipt, and then we'll get the disc thing. And the situation here is going to play out a little bit differently because the scorpions were never bought.
I didn't know what was on the disc, but the way Early had hidden it, it was bound to be dirty laundry.
How you doing, General? You got a warrant to show me, or you just breaking and entering?
What's on the disc, Early?
Hey, I don't hassle you about your private life. Put it down, McCoy.
Must be something pretty juicy. Your girls know about the cameras?
I got you. You want to trade. The disc for what?
Let's hear what you got.
What do you say you and I have a drink first,
Alright, so this dialogue's mostly the same, but we'll still draw the gun on him.
Cough up some dirt, Early, or I'm taking this disc downtown.
You want Dektora, is that it? The girl with the rep friends? I can give her up. It'd be a hell of a score for you, General. 4, maybe 5 skin jobs.
Sit down.
I'll throw in a night with one of my dancers.
Gross.
Sit down.
Alright, so early Q's not going to die because the scorpions were never purchased by Dektora.
We got a deal or not?
And then,
Let's hear what you got.
And then I get the disc?
We'll see. I still got the gun.
You're cold, General.
So you could try to shoot him here, but if you do, actually, I'll just show it real quick. I will do a save game. If you shoot him, Hanoi shows up and shoots you, and it's over. So we're not going to do that because that's the end of the game.
But
We'll just put the gun down.
Thankful I put those cameras in. Hey, check out Dektora's bearded boy toy. He's here all the time. You can be sure he ain't coming around for the witty conversation.
I've seen him before. What makes you think he's a replicant?
He walked right by my dancers. Didn't even pop a stiffy.
Maybe he swings another way.
Oh, come on, McCoy. Have you seen my girls? Besides, I heard him talking to Dektora. They got friends who are going to help him get off-world. I'm telling you, they got a whole little replicant love fest going on.
You hear him say anything else?
No, General, I ain't the nosy type.
Yeah, you're a model citizen.
Mm-hmm.
You still have something in mind?
So you can give him the disc or keep it, but there's no reason to give it back to him, so
The disc?
we'll just keep it.
I'm keeping it for now.
We had a deal.
You'll get it back if you behave.
So it's blackmail.
Insurance.
No more free drinks for you, buddy boy.
I didn't get free drinks before.
Get out of my club.
So actually, that part about the free drinks was wrong, as I demonstrated before. All the drinks here are free. So now we actually get an additional photograph because because Early Q didn't get killed by Dektora. So we'll go to our apartment and we'll examine these photographs and see what they have to offer us. So I don't know what exactly causes Dektora to buy the scorpions or not. I've got two suspicions. And one of them is that it's random, whether or not Dektora buys them. And the other suspicion I have is that it's one of those real-time aspects of the game. And I think that's more likely. I don't think there's very much that's random in this game other than who is a replicant or not. So I think what happened was I spent so much time talking about the game and following up on all the evidence.
Your floor number, please.
That by the time I even got to Animoid Row,
88F.
Dektora had already bought the scorpions. So I think if you resolve the Ezo situation before Dektora has the chance to buy the scorpions, that is the thing. But if anyone knows for certain or has some speculations of their own,
Video disc.
let me know.
One enhanceable image found.
Now, one thing I read in one
Adding
guide that I
enhanceable
found
photographs to Kaya database.
online was someone speculated that if you touch the scorpion box twice, it makes Dektora buy them or not buy them, but that's not true. It has nothing to do with whether or not you interact with it. I'm pretty sure it's a timing thing. Alright, so let's
Q's nightclub.
take a look at Early Q's nightclub, and we will see the most disturbing thing in the game if we zoom in back here.
Early, you sick bastard. Give me a hard copy of that.
Early hitting on Lucy. That poor girl. Alright, and also over here, and I want to point out a few things. Whether or not you ever found the scorpions, this photo is always the same.
Where have I seen that before?
And
Give me a
that
hard copy
is
of that.
the scorpions. And so, Dektora, it's just one of those inconsistencies in the game. And you'll see at this point in the game, at the end of Act 3 and Act 4 and 5, a lot of things start falling apart just because there's so many variables to the game and not everything is accounted for. And so Dektora shouldn't have those scorpions in this photo. And actually, because of that, I want to show you, since Dektora never bought the scorpions in this playthrough,
Hawker's circle.
the Hawker's circle photo is different, and we actually can zoom in back here and we get to see a cameo appearance of Deckard in the game.
A strange scale.
Alright, so we get to see Deckard showing the fish lady the scale. Alright, and so now we can look at the other photo that Early Q gave us. Now, if Early Q had been killed, we never would have been able to get this photograph. And the truth is, at this point, none of the evidence in the photograph matters. We actually have all the evidence that we need to solve this act. So we can zoom in here on Clovis's shoulder.
Flowers. So, our little bearded pal is a nature lover. Give me a hard copy of that.
and we can see some flowers. And you can't zoom in on Clovis's face in this photo. So it's the first time of all the photos of Clovis that we can't zoom in on his face. But we can zoom in on Dektora here, but we're not actually going to see Dektora. We're going to see...
Hello there, Lucy. Give me a hard copy of that.
We're going to see Lucy. I guess Dektora is sort of in the photo. And that's all that we can look at in this photograph. So let's go ahead and resolve the situation with Dektora.
Your floor number, please.
Now, there's a few things I wanted to mention as well. Originally, I mentioned I didn't kill Zubin in Act 1 because I was going to try to get a Lucy ending. The Lucy as a romance interest ending. Or, if possible, I was going to get the Dektora as a love interest ending. But in all my playing of this game, one thing that I've discovered more or less is that you can only get a Dektora ending if Dektora is the replicant, is the third replicant in this act. And you can only get the Lucy ending if Lucy is not the third replicant in the playthrough. But in this playthrough, Dektora is not the third replicant and Lucy is, and so we can't actually get any romance ending. So I'm just going to play as a real Blade Runner from here on out. The fact that we didn't retire Zubin might mean that Clovis still likes us, but I'm not sure on that. So one thing that I've hinted at, but I haven't actually mentioned outright, is that each of the characters has a disposition towards you, and which ending you can get is largely based on who has more of a disposition towards you at the end of the game. And so if Clovis has a higher disposition towards you than Crystal, you'll get the Rep Sympathizer ending. But I'm at least going to try to get the real Blade Runner ending
I just wanted
with
to
Crystal.
say, wow, you were awe-inspiring.
Well, thank you very much, Mr.
McCoy. Ray McCoy.
Is there something I can do for you, Mr. McCoy?
Alright, so this is just sort of a nod to the film, because when Deckard goes to meet Zora for the first time, he's also talking in a funny voice, and so Ray is doing the same thing as well. And we can click on these flowers.
The flowers are beautiful.
And extremely rare. They were a gift from my lover.
That's a pretty card.
Please don't touch that. It's private.
Sorry.
And then we can talk to Dektora, and we can ask her about Early Q.
How do you like working for Early Q?
He's always treated me very well.
Ever see him hanging out with any unsavory types?
We don't get many priests in here, if that's what you mean.
Uh-huh. And one thing that's funny about this conversation is we have the photo that shows that Early Q was with Lucy, but McCoy never will ask Dektora about it or anything like that. And like, if I were a detective, I would be asking about that personally. So we can also ask about the dragonfly jewelry.
That's such an unusual belt. Is it antique?
They say it's from the last century. Those little creatures have always been my favorites.
Dragonflies?
Yes. And the whole class that contains them.
Tell you the truth, I'm from the LPD. I'd like to ask you a few questions if I could.
Is this about Early Q? Because I could tell you.
Did any other pieces come with the belt?
I'm sure I don't know what you mean.
Alright, so I want to point out a bug here. McCoy just admitted that he was from the LPD and started talking in a normal voice. I clicked on the flowers at the very start, but if you click on the flowers now, McCoy will go back to talking in his goofy voice. So it's just kind of funny that he does that. Alright, so we have a few choices here. We can either warn Dektora about Crystal or give the Voight Kampf test to her. There's no reason to warn her about Crystal. That really only matters if you want her to be a love interest. And like I said, she can only be a love interest if she's the third replicant. So we'll just give her the test so that we can see what her responses are.
There's a little test I'd like you to take.
Do you think I'm a replicant? Is that what this is about? If it's Early Q, I'll help you any way you want.
Not exactly.
This is insane. I have a family, a daughter, for heaven's sake. Look, I'm willing to testify against Early Q. A replicant wouldn't do that, would it?
A replicant doesn't necessarily care about what happens to another replicant.
Then you must be a replicant.
I'm sure I'm not.
How do you know you're not a replicant? Did you ever take that test yourself?
Sure I did. Long time ago.
Don't replicants go around with false memories? Maybe somewhere along the line you killed a human, took his place, and your superiors don't even know about it.
Interesting idea. But I'm still going to give you the test.
Alright, so let's calibrate the machine for Dektora. I like that conversation between them about, well, then you must be a replicant. And he's like, interesting idea, but I'm still going to give you the test. Alright, let's calibrate.
Reaction time is a factor in this, so please pay attention. Where do you live?
I don't see why you need to know that.
Good response.
What do you do for a living?
That's a stupid question.
Just calibrating the machine.
So the test hasn't started yet?
Not yet. What's your name?
Dektora?
Just Dektora?
Yes.
Alright, and that's all we can calibrate with, and the calibration seems to be correct. So let's see if we can actually get a result out of this machine. Now, what I read up on this, and one thing it said is, if the bars go to the left, you're in the safety zone, but if they start going too far to the right, you should do more low-intensity questions. So let's just start with a high-intensity question to start out with.
You're at a restaurant with friends. One of them orders lobster. The chef drops the lobster into the tub of boiling water while you watch.
I'd leave, and I'd report the restaurant to the authorities.
So the bar has moved a little bit to the left, so I'm going to try another high-intensity one.
You're watching an old movie. It shows a banquet in progress. The guests are enjoying raw oysters. The entree consists of boiled dog.
I'd walk out.
Alright, let's go low
You're
intensity.
crying. Why is that?
I suppose I'm unhappy. Perhaps
There, we
someone
got a
has
pretty
died.
strong human response.
I don't cry very often.
A teacher calls you stupid in front of the rest of the class.
I'd stand up to him.
That one went pretty far over.
Are
so
you
let's do a
taking
low
any drugs?
intensity one.
Absolutely not.
Pretty human
Do you think all
response
dancers
there.
are drug addicts?
You notice someone attractive across the room.
I'd approach them.
Replicant response. Alright, let's
What's
go
the most
medium.
embarrassing thing that ever happened to you?
Probably this test.
No, seriously.
Yes, seriously.
Seriously.
Are we finished?
Almost.
Alright, there was no response there, but I like her answer to that question.
You see an oversized book with pictures of exotic animals on the cover. The title is Big Game Hunting in Zaire. Curious, you flip it open. There's a picture of a man standing with his foot on a dead Cape buffalo. You find yourself fascinated. You keep paging through it, seeing picture after picture of animals laid to waste, each more gruesome than the last.
That's not true. I'd burn the book.
Alright, better go low intensity.
When did you stop beating your spouse?
Next question.
A man dressed in rags approaches you on the street and asks for money.
I'd give him some, if I had any to spare.
Test terminated.
Alright, so we didn't get a result there, but she's human. We already know that because the car was not registered to her. And so that's the end of the Dektora situation. Now, if Dektora had been a replicant, we would follow her into this part of the world, and there's the film projector and stuff up here. But Dektora is not a replicant, so no one's going to be up here. But I'll show it to you anyway. So actually, one thing I wanted to mention is, after I finished this main playthrough, I was going to do a bunch of quick playthroughs just to demonstrate some of the different things that can happen in the game for certain circumstances. You might have noticed that I have a lot of save games here. Actually, I'm going to save the game real quick. I have a lot of save games here, and these ones down here just have these sort of funny labels, and then they say begin. And they are various save game states at the very beginning of the game at Runsitter's, where I've gone ahead and played through the game from that point to figure out who was replicant, who was human, and who was the third replicant and stuff. So I'll be able to show you a lot more of the game, or the rest of the game, on subsequent playthroughs. But like I said, they're just going to be quick playthroughs. I'm not going to show everything. I'm just going to show the relevant parts of them. So now we can go approach Lucy and finish up the third act. So Lucy, like I said, may or may not be there. It all just seems 100% random for Lucy, but with Gordo and Dektora, they're always there. So I figure always go to Dektora and Gordo first, and then check on Lucy. I'm going to wrap this episode up now. Originally I intended to finish the act, but the episode was running kind of long.